All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so yesterday we had the orientation for the program, and today is the second day. So technically, today is going to be the actual beginning of the program. Um, we are going to have another beginner session this month, probably the last week of July. Then in August, August will be dedicated for intermediate section. Okay. All right. So yesterday we talked about some stuff, and then I introduced to you what programming is. We talked a bit about programming languages. Okay, so today we're going to continue from where we left off last week, and sorry, yesterday. And I'm hoping a lot can be achieved by the close of the day. Now, before we start, if there is any question, please let me know. Okay. You probably you encounter something, you read something, you have a question, let me know so I can probably throw some light on it for you. All right. So if you have any questions, please.
I don't know the others, but I don't have a question now.
Okay. All right. So that is cool. Were you all able to access yesterday's videos? Freddy, you weren't here yesterday. Have you been able to access the videos? Okay, all right. So I think people are having issues with the internet. So let's continue. All right. So yesterday we talked about programming languages, and then I asked you guys to do some installations. We talked about the different types of programming languages, and I said that the differentiation could be done in say 2 ways, right? In terms of closeness to the hardware, we saw that we could have high-level languages and low-level languages. And under the high-level languages, we talked about C++, Python, and Java, those people. And also under low level, we said machine language is the lowest, and it is also the only, what do we call it? The only programming language that the computer understands, okay? And we also have an assembly language, sorry, which is actually considered as the truest form of low-level language. I'm trying to set video panel by a high video panel. I want to have this thing should have presenters view. Okay, just a minute. Okay, optimize for video clip. Okay, fantastic. All right, so since we're going to be programming, we are going to learn how to program using Python, it also makes sense that we have a fair knowledge, a little bit of information about Python. So let's start with what the Python programming language is, okay? So first of all, yesterday we mentioned that in terms of the way code is converted from the high level language to the low level language, we have two types of programs, or programming languages can be grouped into two. We have the compiled languages, example is C++, and then we have interpreted languages, example being Python. So Python is first of all an interpreted language. And yesterday I tried to interpret interpreted language. So maybe let me use an analogy to do that. Now, let's say I have two rockets, right? Something that I want to launch into space. Now, rocket C is programmed with C++, which is a compiled language. Rocket P is programmed with Python, which is an interpreted language. Okay, now this is what will happen. Let's say that somewhere along the code, there is a mistake. For rocket C, because it's a compiled language, the compiler will first check for errors and make sure everything is correct before launching the rocket, okay? That means that if there is any issues in the code of rocket C, it is going to be, the compiler will bring it out for the programmer to correct it before the rocket can launch. But for rocket P, which is Python and also an interpreted language, the moment you run the code, it will start the rocket, okay? The rocket will keep moving until it finally comes across the line of code that is erroneous, okay? And whenever code error happens in code, your program enters into something called an erratic mode. That means mostly you can't predict the behavior afterwards, especially if you don't handle, if that error was not handled in code, okay? So that means that if our rocket was in air or was airborne and it encounters the error, then it's going to break down and anything at all could happen. It could explode, it could fall back to the earth or whatever, okay? So yeah, this is an analogy illustrating mostly the difference between an interpreted program and then a compiled program. Mainly, compilers will check for errors before they get translated, but interpreted languages pick it one after the other to execution. Okay. And again, Python is a general purpose language. Now, this means that you can use Python for almost anything that you want, any field that you want. So there are people in computer science who are using Python, people in physics who are using Python, people in engineering using Python, okay? It's a general purpose programming language. So it is not meant specifically for one thing or the other, but it can be used for anything depending on your need as a programmer. Okay, now, Python was originally created by a man called Guido van Rossum, okay, and he's still an active contributor, if I may say, of Python. Now, every programming language has a philosophy, okay, and for Python, the whole idea is to emphasize on code readability, and you will see what I'm talking about when we start coding. The whole idea of Python is, or its philosophy is to emphasize on readability. Code readability has to do with writing codes that are not cryptic or symbolic like we have in C++ and some other languages, right? Now, if you see a typical Python code, it's basically English language, okay? Basically English language. So they did this, they emphasize on readability. And so some languages, if you've had experience with programming before, you realize that a language like C++ uses curly braces a lot, right? But in Python, you will not see these curly braces. If you see curly braces, it will be for something else. But Python rather uses indentation, which is also one of the things that we will be seeing as we move forward. Still on the Python programming language. So one of the strengths of Python is its intuition, okay? It is designed to be intuitive without sacrificing power. So people will argue that Python is actually a very easy language to start programming with because it is not symbolic like C++ and like that. Well, I started coding from the C families, right? So actually I started with my Bash which is MS-DOS, and then I jumped to C++, then C Sharp, then Java, and Python was, I think, in 2013 when I had to go and do some work in Switzerland, right? So I actually enjoyed the C format of programming languages. So it's kind of, I wasn't quite, Python didn't seem fun when I started to do it. Okay, I just hated all this idea of indentations and all those kind of stuff. Okay, because all the languages that I started with, talk of C++, C Sharp, Java, they all take after C++. Okay, so when I had to come to Python and everything was dynamic, typing, no curly braces, indentations. It wasn't sweet at first, but I had a good motivation to push through, and now Python is one of the languages that I use so much and often. Okay, so because of its easiness and all this kind of design to be intuitive, it actually makes it very simple to solve problems with it. Remember, yesterday I said that our job here is to learn how to solve problems with code, not to learn how to code, right? So if you have a language, if this is your motivation and you have a language that has a lot of features already developed, then it makes programming easier and fun. Okay, now Python is an open source programming language, so that means that if you have the necessary skill, you could actually go for the source code and do whatever you want with it. Okay, so Python is not for sale. The interpreter is not for sale. It's free. You can port it. You can edit it to do whatever you want to do, so far as you know whatever you are doing. So that's what we mean by it's open source. Still on Python programming, Python is very good. In fact, initially Python started as a scripting language, and then it became a full-blown programming language. So it's actually very good at scripting stuff that are very tedious to do. So if you are a systems administrator, administrator, for instance, Python is one of the languages that you can use to automate some of the web services that you'll be doing and all that. Okay, so I use Python mostly for my backends when I'm creating web applications. I mostly use Python at my backend. In fact, my web applications are powered by Django, and Django is a Python framework. So I'm always using Python since almost every day I am working on a web application project. Okay, so it's very good at creating quick web services or even an extensive applications. And don't get me wrong, it's not just web applications. Can do use Python for a lot of things. Like I'm just telling you some of the things I use Python for. Okay. All right. And so right now too, Python has seen so much, in fact, a tremendous usage in mathematical sciences, research. Okay. So Python is not is not a new language. It is relatively old and has seen a lot of development. In fact, right now, I think if it is not the first, it will be the second most used language. Yeah. I may have to cross check that, but I think it will be between JavaScript and Python. But I think if Python is not first, it's going to be second. Okay. Now, so usually people want to start to learn how to program using Python, which, well, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. But like I said, I straightforward enjoyed the C guy. So when I had to move to Python, it was quite challenging. But I do get people telling me that, oh, Python is quite easy. So yeah, you can also give it a try as you are already doing. All right. So yep, I think these are things that I put in for you to read. Okay, now, yesterday we said that interpreted languages like Python need another program called interpreter, which converts or translates the high-level language that source codes that we'll be writing into the machine code equivalent, right? So let's look at what we call the Python interpreter, which is what we'll be using for this programming, okay? So the Python interpreter is actually the Python language itself. So it contains everything that there is to do about the Python language, okay? So let's look at a couple of things. So the interpreter takes your code and converts it into the machine language, which is the language the computer will understand, right? Okay, now, yesterday we saw that machine language is just made up of what? Zeros and ones. That's all, zeros and ones, okay? Right. So I think from here, I'm going to be doing a lot of, yesterday I asked you to install some stuff. Let me see. So yesterday I asked you to do some installations. How many of you were able to do that? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Please, I was able to do that. Ebenezer.
Okay, Fusini, were you also able to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay, and are you guys having your laptops with you or your computers with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we'll be doing practical sessions. Okay, so try and follow. Okay, or you could probably follow what I'm doing, ask your questions. Then when you get the video, you try to replicate it. Is that okay? I think that would be the best so that we don't end up wasting so much time. Okay. All right. So if you were able to install the interpreter, the programs I asked you to, then we can verify it by doing a couple of steps. So first of all, I'm gonna come to my Windows start menu and search for Ideal. Okay. So if you installed it and you were successful, you should see this program directly. Now, Ideal is a simple GUI that installs with Python as a means of doing Python without any heavy text editors or IDEs. Okay? So this is what we call the Python interpreter. So this is one way of launching the Python interpreter. Another way you could do that is also to type Python. Okay. So if you type Python, you see, so my version is Python 3.8, whatever version you are using, that is okay. So this is also another way of launching the Python interpreter, okay? So you can see that we have Python 3.8, here too we have this Python 3.8. Okay, so this is what we call the Python interpreter. And one last way you can launch this is by going back to your start menu, type CMD to launch the command prompt program of your Windows, okay? And once this has been successful, first you have to check whether, you see, after installing Python, it may also happen that you didn't add it to your path, your system path. Now, if that happens, when you type this command, if you type Python space minus capital V and hit enter, you won't see anything. Okay, you won't see anything if it doesn't even complain of an error. But if your Python has been installed on your system path like mine, then if you type this command, Python minus V, you should get the version of your Python printed. So this says that I'm using Python version 3.10, okay? So you guys should try this and let us see. Try this, open command prompt. Okay, so I'm repeating it. Go to your Windows menu, type CMD to open your command prompt. Once you open your command prompt, type Python, and please be careful and mindful about the spellings. Okay, very, very important. Now let me increase the font size a bit. Okay, so go to your Windows menu, CMD, command prompts, okay? Then once you are at the command prompt, you can type Python space minus capital V. Now you make sure you are typing exactly what I'm typing. I can say that there is no space between the minus and the capital V, okay? Once you hit enter, you should get the version of the Python that you are using. Oh, so I actually have two versions of the Python right now. It says that I'm using my Python 3.10. All right, so have you all tried it?
Yes, sir.
Did you get it?
Yes, I got Python 3.8, 3.8.2.
Okay. Hussein, how about you?
I had Python 3.10.5.
Okay, so this means that your Python interpreter has been installed on your command line. So you can always call Python and run anything. Okay, so I can do something like Python, maybe 2 + 5. Oh, sorry, you come to that. You come to that. Okay, so Python -c 2 + 3. Okay, don't worry. When we get there, I will explain what I wanted to do. Okay. All right. So now that we've installed our Python and the interpreter, if you want to launch or open the interpreter from command line, you have to do Python. Just type Python. Is that okay? If you hit enter, it opens. It will open the Python interpreter. So right now, we are in the Python interpreter, so it means that we can run Python commands. Okay, so for instance, I can do 2 + 4. Oh, sorry. 2 + 4, and it gives me 6. I can do print hello world, and it prints hello world. I can say that multiply the name Eric by 6, and it duplicates it. Okay, so I've started the programming. This is what we mean. These are some of the things that you can do. In fact, you can do complex things with this. You can do complex things. So I can do 2 raised to the power 3, which is 8. I can do 4 raised to the power 3 plus 32. Okay, I can do a whole lot of things. I can do a whole lot of things. Okay, so this is the Python interpreter. You can use it as a simple calculator, use it to do a lot of stuff that you want to do. Okay, so we'll be using it a lot. Now, aside using the command line, you can also use the ideal shell, okay, or you can launch the Python interpreter directly using by typing Python and clicking on whichever version that you want. So I think we will stay in here for some time, then sorry, we will use the ideal for some time, and then we will switch from it. So let's do a couple of settings. Configure ideal. I want to increase the font size. So do I have consolas? Do I have consolas? All right. Let me use Comic Sans, and I'll set my spaces to 4, yes. And my font size, I want to keep it to 14, all right? Okay. All right, so again, everything I did in the black thing, I can also do it here. 56 minus 2 divided by 4, okay? Print, let's say print hello world. Okay, so what I'm entering are all Python commands, and it's getting executed. So before we start, please quickly try this and let's see. Quickly try this. Try exactly what I've done in there. Okay, is yours working? Have you all finished testing it? Hello guys, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is what you are doing working?
Yes, sir. It is.
Husseini, how about you?
Yes. Hello. Okay.
Husseini,
Yes,
are you
please.
getting it to work? Hello, Husseini. Okay.
It's working.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so this is the interpreter, and you see, so things are quite simple. So assuming I'm typing something, so let's say I want to type Eric, right? And I made a mistake. You can always use the backspace to delete stuff, right? But the moment you issue a command, you press the enter key, you can't edit it. So I can't come back to edit this guy. Okay, if I really want to do it, edit it, then I'll just have to type it all over again. Okay, you can't, once you hit enter on a command, you can't go back to edit it in your interpreter. So take note of that. Okay, all right. We'll be
Since
doing a lot of, yeah.
less than 2 minutes to time out.
Come again?
Since you have less than 2 minutes to time out.
Yes, I can see that. So don't worry, I'll end at the right time. Okay. Now, is there anyone who has used a Linux operating system like Ubuntu before?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. So let's end this session and then come back and continue. Okay, so you join as quick as possible.
Please, at what time, please? I don't want to play. Okay.